Welcome to today's live match, and we have come to the Nufish Feederking qualifier at Southfield Reservoir. Now, Southfield's been a really happy hunting ground for me over the years. Super enjoy coming here. I like a really competitive match, and you don't get loads of room on these matches. It's a big straight line, but it feels like a real match. You know, like you're fishing against everybody, and you have to win your 20 peg zone in order to qualify for the grand final. Now, that's proving difficult for me this year, I've got to be honest. This is my third attempt now, and unlike previous years when I feel like I've been able to make something happen, mix it up, change it, it's not been like that this year, and several people are saying the same, and it's quite strange, because for 10 years I've always felt like you've been able to manipulate your peg to put some worms in, take some worms out, put soft ground bait in, all those sorts of things that you've seen me do loads of times, and they've worked really well. Now, what's happening, I believe, at Southfield is, it's just my theory, there's matches here, like open style matches twice a week, every week. And worms are a really popular bait, so a lot of worms go into the water here at Southfield. And I think as a result of that, the fish have got like this constant supply. I think when it was being fished by in club matches and that, where they're allowed pellets and things like that, a lot of people were fishing with pellets. So when we came and fished with worms, they did something, the fish loved them. Now it feels like they're sick of them, they get them all the time, and they're just like, they don't have that same impact. So as an angler, I've got to try and be a little bit resourceful. I've got to try and think on my feet, think how I can do something to make the difference. Because what's been happening in the qualifiers is you get little pods of bream. So you get, everybody gets a few bites, and then you'll find that like there'll be 2 or 3 people together, they catch 2, 3, 4 bream, and the bream are big. They're like 2.5 to 5 pounds. So you catch 3 bream, you're probably going to be pushing for like 8 or 9 pound, which is really hard to get to with the small fish. So I need a new strategy is what I need. I need something new. So I'm going to bring you guys along for the journey, because usually when we fish at Southfield, we'd be fishing, like I say, for big bream and those sorts of fish. But I don't want to sit here today and just wait for 2 or 3 bream for you guys on camera. That's going to be pretty boring. I'm prepared to almost gamble on this match today for the sake of this video, to hopefully give us all a little bit of entertainment and see what's happening. Now, there's a lot of small fish in this reservoir at the moment. It's coming to the summer, and what happens is, as time goes on, the fish basically migrate in here, the smaller fish. Lots of little roach, little skimmers, those sorts of fish. And I've been told there's a lot of those in at the moment. Now, I've drawn a zone today where I think anywhere from 8 to 12 pound will be the qualifying weight. And to get there, I'm going to try and catch some of these small fish with the hope of an odd bonus fish later on, because what seems to happen is these small fish seems to feed earlier in the day, and then everything switches off, and your only chance really is like an odd better bream. So that's my plan, that I'm going to sort of look to catch these smaller fish, and then I'm hopefully going to set it up for an odd bream or 2. Now, I've got a caveat to this plan today. Next door, I've got Brian Searle. Now, Brian is a fantastic bream fishing angler. He's a fantastic angler, full stop, and he is the current Nufish Feederking reigning champion. So the fact that he hasn't qualified yet probably gives you an idea of how the venue's fishing as well. But Brian will be fishing for bream. I know that for sure. So I've got basically this marker here, somebody who is very good at it, who's going to fish for bream. And if there's a few early bream, you know, in the early stages, then I'm going to have to change. I'm going to have to adapt. I'm going to have to fish for bream in that earlier part of the match, when maybe I was hoping for those few smaller fish. So this is a proper match. We're going to look at the decisions. We're going to look at who's around us. We're going to look at what's happening during the day. Hopefully we get a few bites to show you guys what's going on. But even if we don't, I'm sure you'll learn things about how we're going to do things, how we mix the stuff, how we do the rigs. I'm sure there's lots to take away. So I think we should get into it and have a little look at my bait. Okay, let's look at the bait. This is a very typical Southfield bait menu. talk about the live baits first of all. So I've got some worms. I always bring a kilo of worms to Southfield. That's what I bring. Gives me some for the hook bait, gives me some to manipulate across 2, maybe 3 lines, and I always have a few left at the end. But I bring a kilo and they're all ready to go in my sieve here. Now, I wouldn't come to Southfield without red worms. These are a fantastic hook bait. So I've collected some of these from my local horse heap. I've got a nice little sort of neat glob of them there, look. Which they're only hook bait, so they're going to last me no problem today. That is a fantastic hook bait, and we'll talk about hook baits as the day goes on here. Now, in the past, worms were the dominant bait for me, but like I've told you, it's changed. So I've brought with me some casters. I bring a pint of casters, just get half, bring them in 2 halves. So I've got a half out ready to go, and I'll put some of those in throughout the day. And then I've got some dead maggots, some dead red maggots, and I've got some dead fluoro pinkies. Now, for me, I always do this. I always do fluoro pinkies and red maggots. It's quite strange really, isn't it? But I like the fluoro because I like to put a fleck of colour on my hook bait sometimes. And I tend to just literally have like a few like this on my hand and just flick them in the ground bait. So there's an odd fluorescent fleck in my ground bait. I don't tend to feed loads of these. If I start feeding these type of baits, I'll feed the maggots, the dead maggots, or the casters. That's what I'll feed. So it's not, the pinkies are just there really as like this odd little bit of fleck of colour. And I've got to make that decision. This is, you know, if there's a few bream feeding, I'll start putting in these red maggots. Now, ground bait, and this is where, I'm not going to say I've taken a gamble, but I've done something a bit different. Fish meal dominates on here without a doubt, but there's lots of these other fish in here, and I feel like at times, if I've overpowered it with fish meal, it's almost drained me of a few bites. So I've done something a bit different for the cameras today, because this is a ground bait that I've been using a lot and it's been working. So my base is my F1 original, and if you notice, it's the light one. It's the light in colour. The water's really coloured here. I want something that's going to stand out from other people. So I put 2 pints of this into a bucket this morning, and then I've added in a pint of super feeder bream. So the finished mix, if I get that here, looks like this. Quite bright in colour. Now, super feeder bream is full of food, bream food, like crushed corn, crushed breads, crushed biscuit. It's really sweet. The cameraman's been loving it as I've been mixing it up. And you can see there's flecks of food in here. Everybody is feeding with the fine fish meal ground baits because pellets are banned here at Southfield, so you're not even allowed to have like a really coarse pellety ground bait. So I wanted some food in my ground bait, and I feel like just doing something a little bit different there today than probably a lot of people are doing. It's light in colour, it smells really sweet, and it's got a lot of food in it. So I put 1 pint of that in, so 2 pints of F1, 1 pint of super feeder, and then I've mixed that up there quite dry, and then I've got it in 2 different styles on my side tray. I've got like a damper type mix that I've just sort of wetted up. This will be my normal fishing mix. You can see there the food that's in that mix. It smells incredible, by the way. And then I've got like a wet mix in case I need some sort of like extra attraction. So the dry mix I showed you at the start, that's just there for you, like basically turning into these 2 types of mixes. So I've got a nice wet version, I've got a damp version, and I'm going to play with that today. We're going to have a real play for you guys today. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it as we go. Feel the peg and see if I can use this ground bait to draw a few fish in. Hopefully a few early skimmers, and we'll take it from there. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes before the match starts. So I'm basically going to get set up ready to go, and I'll talk you through the lines and what we're doing, and you can see if it's going to work or not. Right, here we go. I'm going to start today at 42 metres, because even though there's some like smaller fish in that to catch here, it seemed to me last time that there was an odd slightly better skimmer to catch earlier, a little bit further out. I tried to fish 30 metres last time, and then 50 metres for sort of bigger fish, and really the most fish were at 50 metres. So I've sort of split the difference today because I want to fish a bit nicer. And I'm putting in 2 of those nice soft ones that you saw with, I'm going to say, nothing in. A pinky, the tiniest bit of worm you've ever seen in your life. So literally just put 2 of them in, just completely soft, no firm ground bait at all. Now at Southfield recently there's been a bit of an obsession with putting in a bit of extra bait on your bream line, and that is basically not what I'm going to do. And my other line is 18 metres, because they've been catching a lot of fish on a pole here, which is obviously would be even closer still. But 18 metres again is a nice distance, and I'm just going to put one in there with some worms, like a nice blob of worms. Again, it's like, it's not even getting to the bottom that I'm putting in. And this second one is just pure GB, and you can see I've barely even nipped it in. Just chuck that out, bring my rod back again. So 2 little cloudy ones, bit of extra bait there. Don't really want to go on that to start with. I'm going to start on this 42 metre line, but that was with a large hex mesh feeder, and the one on the longer line was a medium 30 gram hex mesh. So I'm just going to have a little look at my rig. 20, 30, 40, 50. You have to fish a minimum 50 centimetres here below your feeder, which is a great rule because I love doing that style of fishing, and I don't like to feed with my hook length on in case I get in a tangle. So I've just set my little boom, which I'll touch on in a bit. And to begin with, I've got a 14 N20 to 014 AccuPower. So even though I sort of said I was fishing for like anything that swims, if you like, I've just found every time I drop dead small, when I fish at distance, I just don't catch the right fish. Catch like missed bites still, and just nothing happens. So I'm going to put 2 pieces of Dendrobina on a 14, and the reason I've gone for 2 bits of Dendrobina, if I can hold them still there, is because I need something tough, because there's a lot of roach in at the moment, a lot of roach. And I'm going to start with the nice ground bait. I'm going to nip it in a little bit so it goes to the bottom in the medium feeder, nice and yellow, nice and attractive, next to nothing in it, literally next to nothing, because that is about half a metre to the right of my 2 sloppy ones, which has annoyed me really, because I wanted to be bang on it for my first cast, but never mind, we'll survive. Because every time I've come and fed any amount of worm, all that's happened is I end up missing bites and my peg goes a bit rubbishy. So I'm hoping, I'm going to look at the camera and see if my tip's alright. Hopefully he's going to get my tip in shot. Got my stopwatch, I'm going to start. Now early doors, I'm going to be quite proactive. Oh look at that rattle straight away, which is evident of what I think is in this now. So I've heard there's a lot of like little roach come in, and I could have fished for those little roach, and I might have a spell today where I try and catch a few, but you're not going to qualify with those tiny little roach because they're too small. You need an odd, better stampy type fish, which is why I've got that bigger hook on and 2 tough bits of Dendrobina, because I don't want those little fish to basically strip my hook bait. And I'm going to do 3-minute casts to start with, really regular. I'm just going to have like probably 5 3-minute casts, because at the start of the match everybody seems to be quite patient, and I just want to plop a bit of ground bait in every 3 minutes and just try and gather a few fish there. It might not be the right thing to do. Like I usually fish 5 to 8 minute casts on Southfield, but I've just told you the 3 qualifiers I've had so far caught absolutely nothing. So as an angler, and because I believe that this venue has changed, I need to think outside the box a little bit and do something a little bit different. And we'll see how it starts off. Like I said, this ground bait it's basically just pure ground bait. But I can't even see a piece of worm in it. I got like that much worm. So like there's just an odd little tiny fleck of worm in my bait. Something for them maybe to eat. And I'm hoping those sort of tinier roach have just drifted off to people who maybe have fed a bit more worm. So literally going to flick a tiny bit of that in my ground bait. Nothing. And we're going to have 3 minute cast to kick us off. Another jabby bite. There's clearly a lot of these tiny roach in. Another jabby bite. You know, you don't hit those bites. They're just little fish pulling at the end of the dendrobinia, and this is what I've been warned about. I've been warned about a lot of these tiny fish in the canal, come in from the canal into the reservoir. Like I say, I probably have a little fish for them at one point, but early doors, there's often a chance of like a slightly better fish. So while there's a chance of a slightly better fish, I'm prepared to fish slightly bigger baits and see if I can catch one. I think there could be a tiny fish hanging on here. No, it's come off. Oh no, he's still hanging on. That doesn't prove very good, does it? Look, this is what I mean. There's a lot of these in. These tiny, I mean, that's like a skimmery type thing. And there's a lot in, so that's why I'm having to fish with like a robust hook bait. Like that. What's your brolly? Sorry. That was close. We nearly had a brolly in there. Last time I filmed a live match here, Dave, Dan Webb's brolly went in. Thanks for that, Dan. Great day that was. No doubt you'll be watching. So it seems a live match feature. I got blamed for that as well, Dan. Anyway, little tiny skimmer there. Like I say, they've obviously come straight in. That's nice. That's nice and on my bang on my initial 2 sloppy ones. That is, so that's good. Get the rod. Try and get the braid down. I've set the tip slightly off the water today because you guys need to see it. If I had it right down low, you wouldn't be able to see it. So we're off the mark with a tiny little fish. At least I think I put it in my keep net. I was too distracted by the brolly. Now you may think as well, sometimes when you're casting in regularly, you don't really want to be using it like a great big or a big feeder. But this is kind of what I'm trying to achieve in this like early stage. I'm trying to achieve like a bit of this nice ground bait in my peg. So maybe some of these like these sort of size skimmers come and have a little look at what I'm doing. Every time I've tried to do it with like a tiny feeder, all that happens is you just don't get anything in your peg. So I'm going to be a little bit more positive, like I say early on, see what we can gather. If it doesn't work, we've tried it nonetheless. But nice to get us a fish early doors. It's also important to note, you know, you do need to look around in these matches, because obviously you need to know if there's like a bream or any bigger fish being caught in this early period, because if there is, again, like you're going to have to change your tactics, adapt what you're doing. So I want to watch my tip because I want to learn from my peg, but I've also got to keep my eyes and ears out to see what else is in being caught. Little indication there. I'm actually going to put it'll be interesting to see if they like the yellower ground bait as well. Like traditionally here, a lot of people fish like with a dark ground bait or like a green ground bait. You know, those traditional sort of fish mealy type mixes. 2 minutes in, I'm going to give it a little, straighten it out a little bit. Sometimes you have an odd fish hanging on. Got to remember here, it's so silty. The bottom is so unbelievable. Oh, look, that's a skimmer straight away for somebody there. Like a 12 Ozer, I'd say. 2 pegs down. They're the fish that I'd love to be able to catch, like a few of them. I'll have to see. I'll have to see if they're prepared to play ball today. Not getting overly ragged by little fish bites this time, which is a good sign, promising sign. Sometimes when you're like a little bit busier in and out, that is when you tend to draw those little fish in, but by doing it with ground bait, I'm hoping that I don't. But we'll see. We'll see. Right, 3 minutes, let's just pick it up. And my bait's not damaged, that's good news. This early part of your match really does, or really can, sort of set your day. You know, like you start to get a read on it hopefully pretty quickly. The problem is at Southfield is that sometimes nothing happens for an hour, so you don't quite get the read, which is why I'm sort of like trying to gather a few today. I'm going to use this hour to be a little bit more proactive, should I say. See if we can get a few fish in the peg. Lovely conditions today, warm, like 23 to 24 degrees. Breeze is like a northwesterly turning westerly, so you know there's no reason why the fish that are in here shouldn't have a feed today. But you know, I'm sure the cameraman can see up and down the length. There's so many anglers in close proximity that this is a real fishing match. You come here pleasure fishing, you'll have a great day's fishing because there's a lot of fishing. But like I'm trying to get across to you guys, and you'll fish a lot of venues like this as well, commercials, naturals, all these types of venues. As soon as you get pressure, as soon as you get constant pressure on the water from anglers feeding similar types of, oh, prick that one. I think he got caught up in the line. That was like one of them skimmers, that wasn't a little one. Give me a nice little pull round as well there. That's what I'm on about, having like the bigger hook. I wonder if we've got a bit of snot on our line. No. Oh, it was in his gob, that was. Why wasn't that on? I can't believe that. Bit disappointing. Never mind. Right, let's put I'm going to just put a single piece of worm on this time. Maybe it was a bit too much for him. I'm going to get like a medium dendrobina. I'm going to put like, I'm going to cut like an inch of it on, like that. Looked like one of those better skimmer bites, that did. Now, we're cooking on gas now. Let's see if we can get some. At least we're chucking it in the right place and everything's nice. So a bit of toe on the water here, so I'd love to have a slacker tip when I'm fishing for skimmers, but you can't have a slack tip because the toe picks up your tip really quickly. I've experimented with like firmer 2-ounce tips. They can be nice, but I've just got like 1.5 ounces in this one, and I'm just allowing it to bend like with the toe, because a lot of the time those fish they hook themselves. So I had the first, let's see now, 40 minutes on that longer line. Odd little tiny roach pecks, or whatever they are, and tiny little thin skimmers. Had 2 or 3 of those and a roach. Didn't really feel like there was any amount of skimmers there. 3 pegs up has had a bream and a skimmer, so he's got £3. Brian's had a skimmer, Dave's had a skimmer. So I just had a chuck on my close line, which is 18 metres. And I've had a little skimmer first chuck. Literally thought we'd have a little look there before we saw if it was a waste of time. And a little skimmer first chuck, like a 6-8 ounce fish. So I'm going to see if I can make, if I can work this a little bit here, because there's a chance that there's a few little skimmers here on this closer line. I know the pole was good last week, and I've had 45 minutes fishing out there, and in that 45 minutes when I fished out there long, I've put some, a little bit of worm in, I've put the ground bait in, so there's a peg there waiting for me. And I've had 2 chucks here, and I've had 2 fish. Now that's only a little one. Probably shouldn't have netted that, to be fair. But you guys are here, imagine if it had come off. That's more of a true skimmer, that one. But this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to see if there was a few early fish out long, because I felt like on that long line, sometimes there is those skimmers, and I just didn't catch any. I've only seen ones caught, you know what I mean. I've got a little window feeder on. I'm just putting a little bit of the normal ground bait in with a tiny bit of worm in. I put obviously 1 feeder full in there, 2 feeder fulls at the start. And I'm just going to see what's there. Now, I'd like a little bit more wind on, to be honest, because I've got that little window on. It's quite a noisy feeder. It'd be nice to have something a little bit quieter and sneak it in and do it all a bit nicer. But there's little indications there straight away from like small little fish or fish buzzing around there. Just going to put that on there like that. I only want to be chucking it in like every couple of minutes, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, something like that. Just put a tiny piece of worm on. I've got a 16 and 20 on. Just want to see what happens here. Like, a lot of people don't fish this closer line until later on in the day. And I'm curious to know if I sort of just keep fishing it, keep plopping tiny little bits in. Again, can I gather some fish? Some little taps there. Got to be careful, because see, there's fish there. If you can get a bite every single chuck in, it'd be great. It's not going to happen like that all day for definite. It's only a tiny fish, but it's a fish. And Southfield is hard. And even though they are tiny, if you keep catching one, then you nick a skim, and then you nick a better fish or something like that. You just keep putting something in the net. It's more entertaining for you guys, that's for sure. It's more entertaining for me than sitting for 1 bream. Like I said to you before in the pre-match chat, it'd be nice to keep putting a fish in the net and then, look for a bonus bream depending on where we are later on in the day. But sometimes here, putting a fish in the net is actually a lot harder said than done, a lot easier said than done. Right, because you can think there's a few bites and then they just go completely. So I'm not going to fish this at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm just going to fish this nice and relaxed. I'm going to annoy my cameraman because I'm just going to hold my rod for this one, I think. Concentrate so I can keep the tip a little bit slacker. So, see, like little plucks, little dinks and taps and like, there we go, and another one. And I've got to just fish like dead nice, not like literally treat everyone like super important. I think they're probably going to be roach, but I feel like what I might do is go roach, 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 and then like a little run of skimmers. Like I feel like that could happen. And if you were catching them that sort of speed, I'm happy with that, you know. It's whether they stay. That's the key question. Like I said, I do need to, really, I've got to hold my rod for this. So what I'm doing is I'm chucking out, tightening everything up, and then just sliding my rod along the rest into the thing. Flick a tiny bit of worm in my mix. You know, I don't mind if you wind one of those back in every chuck and then you get a skimmer every 10 minutes. That would be amazing. And you might not, but you don't know unless you try. There's little indications on the tip. There's a better fish there, 2 down. I want to try and concentrate on my own tip, to be fair. See, like those sort of like chunky type skimmers. And Brian's got one on next to me as well. And Dave's got one on my left. Maybe let's have a look at the size of all these fish, shall we? Yeah, so Dave's is like 6-8 ounce. Brian's isn't on anymore. I think one of the guys is 6-8 ounce, so I think I've got as much chance of catching one here as I have out there, to be fair. And that's what we're here to find out. A little indication early this chuck, and then not, which is a good thing, I think. Like, what I don't want to be doing is chucking in and the tip rattling like crazy the second it hits the water, because I think that's just tiny roach there. We don't want non-stop tiny roach. When the peg goes a little bit quieter like this, you feel like there is a chance of a little skimmer or something like that, you know. I might try putting like a whole redworm on or something like that, something a little bit more stand out. I don't think you can be winding in like every 30 seconds or anything stupid like that. It's just not that sort of fishing. Check my hook bait. Looks good, but I'm going to put a fresh piece on. Just a little tiny head of a worm for now. Sort of catch everything type thing. Put it back on the rest so you guys can see it. Sometimes I actually quite like fishing on the rest as well, because you sort of ignore all the bites and then wait for like what is a proper bite, you know, because you do get lots of those little, you know, like jabby little tiny bouncy type bites. Also, Southfield really likes a rest, so even if I just have 15 minutes here and chuck back out, and maybe there'll be a skimmer waiting for me, because that often happens as well. So you know, these are the things I've got to work out today. Quite interesting, to be honest. As long as this bites. A little stabby bite then. I've just had a couple of skimmers on my left. That's the problem, you see. Those fish can also come in waves. Interesting at the moment. Interesting that my first chuck on this was a skimmer, and then after like 3 or 4 chucks it's almost like just quietening down. You know, I said to you guys at home, I wanted to know if, you know, if you could keep fishing. See, Brian's hooked another fish there, so there's maybe a few skimmers coming on the longer line, so maybe I've got to go back out on the longer line, work the two lines to pick one off. So look at the size of this one for Brian. Yeah, they're the ones. They are the ones. Got a little fish on again. I think as well I noticed that they catch them on quite big hook baits. Let's try full red worm on this short line before we go back out long. Literally one full red worm. Slightly bigger bait. You can find when there's a lot of roach there that your red worm can get stripped off, like I was saying earlier, which is why you might need multiples on or bigger baits on in general, you know. Just not sure those skimmers like the feeder crashing in on them all the time. If they did, you'd notice the peg build. Just seems to sort of like fade away, catch a few and then, you know, drift away, and you're waiting for bites, and a little tap early on, is my red worm still on, you know, could easily strip it off. Need to go back out long because Brian's just had 3 and 3 chucks quite quickly as well, those skimmers. Yeah, not very big, but they're bites nonetheless. Right, let's have a chuck back out on the long line, see if something's settled there. That's not sort of materialising this short line, as I hoped it might do. And there's a few being caught long, so chuck back out long. Have a look, I've got a window feeder on at the moment, medium window feeder. I'm going to put a biggish bait on, like 2 near full red worms, something nice and visual that those fish can pick out pretty quickly. Tiny little bit of worming, not loads. See if there's any skimmers in my peg. Brian's fishing about 50 metres because I'm 42 and he's just a bit further than me. He's gone for the standard Southfield 30 and 50 metres, I'm saying, which is what I've fished for a long time here, and then maybe a short line closer on. But today I just wanted to rotate 2, a closer one and a longer one. Let's see if we get a bite on this longer line, shall we? Well, the good news is it has gone round with the skim of the first chuck. The bad news is Brian's just got a bream. So he went skimmer bream. I've got a skimmer first chuck, but that is a big fish. Probably £4, I'd say, that fish he's just had, which is not ideal. And a fishing match for me, very nice for him, but unfortunately it's not the start that I would have wanted. But I'm going to say it's promising because there's clearly an odd fish in the area. Now at the moment I'm a little bit torn on what's happening here. in the venue in general, to be fair. Because every time I've fed any amount of bait over these last 2 or 3 weeks, it's just been absolutely and utterly rubbish. But I don't really want to sit here and be negative if there is a few bream about, because I do know what they're like and they do want to eat the bait. So I'm going to start feeding a little bit more bait. Now I'm not fishing. Brian saying he nearly cracked off for us, which we certainly wouldn't have told anybody about. Brian, that's fine. Little roach rattle there straight away. I'll wind that back in because I have 4 or 5 like really vigorous roach rattles. Easily strip your bait off. I'm not too fussed because I put a little bit of worm in there, so you can treat that as a bit of a feed anyway. Worms are all okay, so that's good news. Put another little blob of worms in, not loads. I'll put another little blob of worms in. You know, we've started with mainly ground bait, so we haven't. There's clearly a little window here because I've just had that skimmer. Brian's had 2 skimmers and a bream. Dave had 2 little skimmers. And this is what I talked to you about at the start, about you need to be switched on to adapt. Okay, there was an odd bite short and maybe I could have developed it into something. But when the anglers around you suddenly have a little run of fish, you've got to be out there. You can't miss that opportunity to catch them. So I'm glad I went back out because I've had a skimmer. And then Brian had that bream. I would have felt like if he'd have caught that bream and I'd have gone out, I might have been too late. But I still feel like I'm in with a chance of catching one because I've gone in at this time when there's obviously a few fish or a few proper fish having a chew. It's just whether they want to come and have a chew in my peg. I think I'm going to increase the feed a little bit because there's not a lot. Put an odd dead maggot in as well. Just again, a little bit of extra food. See, one of the things that could be happening is if you're feeding those worms and you're getting roach and that in your peg. That's a skimmer. Little rattly skimmer. You can see what a big difference those bream make. You know, when you're catching like 8 ounce to 12 ounce skimmers, if there's a lot of them, then that's great. You know, you can catch a weight, but 4 pound bream, got to probably catch 10 of those to catch up, I'd say. It's a lot. But it's a bream and it can go around. Next chop could be a bream for me. So a little bit of worm that I've put in, I feel like has given me a little instant response there. So I had a relatively quick bite. Let's see what this is. A little skimmer, I think. Yeah, there we go. Slightly better one. Almost like a 10 Oz, I'd say. Maybe we could have started off with a little bit of extra worm in, but like I said, in recent weeks, worm's just been horrific. That was on 2 nice full red worms. Let's put another. Put another 2 on here. I tend to look at the size of my red worms, and if they're like small, I might even go for 3. Just like a bigger visual hook bait. Let's scoop some bait in this feeder. Oh, medium Preston hex mesh, look. Nice big blob of worm in it. Sort of put 2 blobs in the last chuck and certainly didn't do me any harm, but I'm very aware of overdoing it with the worm. Just pulling that all nice and tight. Pop that on the rod rest. So, right decision to go back out. Sort of had those 2 skimmers, probably for £1. Wind's just getting up a little bit. Like I said to you earlier, conditions are good. There's no reasons why we shouldn't catch a few if there's a few about. What has been happening a lot is there's a few in this early window, and then after that it's right. Interesting. It's interesting. It's definitely gone a bit quieter. I've had a skimmer around about 12 ounces. And there's not a great deal being caught. I think I heard a rumour of somebody with 2 bream further down to the right of the section, but I haven't heard that for definite. So I have to assume that Brian's winning with about £6 at the moment to my right. He's got, after his bream, he had a big eel on his short line. So maybe a bit more, maybe £7. I've got probably like 2 and a bit. As daft as it sounds, it's not a million miles away, because you're not looking for many bites if you can catch those bream. Now, I've fished 42 metres and 18 today. That was my 2 lines, and I have noticed that most of the fish being caught are on that sort of 50 metre line. And I took a decision to fish those lines today, but you'll probably notice I had 2 other rods set up, and I'll stick those up at 55 metres, sorry, 56 metres, just because you never know. Now, it's definitely gone quiet, so just before we start this little segment, I've put 2 feederfuls in, 2 medium cage windows in, with a nice pop of worm in each at that 56 metre line. And I shall have a look on that in a minute, because I deliberately didn't want to put any bait on that far out to start with. I wanted to try and catch at this sort of like 42 metre line, because the wind's nicely in our face. It's a lovely comfortable distance to fish. You can catch these sort of fish with it. Maybe that's been a mistake. Maybe I should have fished like 50 and 30 like a lot of people do. But like I said to you, I've had enough of being the same. I'm trying to look. Today's all about trying to push and find different things. I believe a lot of time match fishing that, you know, if everybody's doing a very similar thing, which is, of course, with all the stuff that we've done on here over the last 5-6 years, people are all fishing in a very similar way. They know all the different ways in which to fish. You know, it's accepted. They know what to do. So I want to try and find something else. I want to try and find that boundary. I want to try and find those different things. Now, leaving that longer line a little bit quieter to start with, and maybe putting some bait in there at the quieter period of the match might give me a little run, might not. I've put a few worms in last sort of 5 or 6 chucks, like a nice blob of worm in, because I hadn't sort of put anything in. And as often happens, it just sort of like goes. And I think now this quieter time is a time to sort of ease back again, because there's just nothing feeding. There's nothing having a go now. If I end up putting like lots of worms in every chuck, just not sure that that's the right way to go. I've got to be honest. I just feel like you're going to build up a lot of worms in your peg and catch nothing. So I'm just going to ease off them again, try and rotate these two lines, have a little go back on this longer line in a minute. There's definitely a few fish being caught today. Like if we get a little run of fish late, it could be a slightly higher weight. I always envisage like maybe £10 could be enough to qualify. I think it's going to be more than that today, because you know, another couple of fish for those that have got some already, they're going to be up to £12–14, so could be a little bit more. But for the time being, just going to ease off. So I put a little window feeder on this chuck. I'm just going to have two more chucks, 2 more 5-minute chucks with like a little window feeder on, just to see if I can nick one at 40 metres. And then I'm going to have a chuck on that longer line where I've put those 2 feederfuls in. Might even be a little bit more patient out on that longer line. Sort of like chuck it, I've put 2 feederfuls in, chuck it out, maybe wait 10 minutes. You know, just less bait and something along those lines. I'm mixing up the hook baits. I've just tried a small dendrobina last couple of chucks, like either 1 piece or 2 pieces, just something a little bit tougher, because you know, if you're going to wait, you don't want those little roach tapping it off, although they seem pretty non-existent to be fair. So 2 pieces of dendrobina on this cast. Push the ground bait in quite hard. There we go. It's right over the top of all that bait, so if there's one there, we'll catch it. This is, so far, this is very similar to what's been happening to me previous few matches. Like, there's odd fish being caught for everybody. I just don't feel like I'm able to make it happen. It's very, very strange. Like, a lot of my feeder fishing, you can work hard and do different things and fire something up into happening, but at the moment here it's just not like that. Maybe I need to be a lot, maybe I need to be a lot more patient and be maybe a little bit more traditional breamy. The trouble is, when I do that, I often think like, well, I'm just relying on a little bit of luck. But maybe I'm not. Maybe I should be a little bit more patient and almost wait my turn. But we'll see. There's a little way to go. Obviously, we're only halfway through the match, so this hour here, this middle hour here, is usually rubbish. And then as we sort of move into like the 4th hour, 'cause it's a 5¼ hour match, but as we just move into that 4th hour, that's when you start to feel if your day's going to go your way or not. If it doesn't go then generally speaking, it's very unlikely you're going to get out of jail at the end of the day. It doesn't seem to pick up too much as the day goes on. It seems to be like around about 2:30, which is 2 hours to go when things happen. But let's see if we can nick one here, and then why don't you join me when I go long and we'll see if we can get a bite. You have joined me for a chuck long. Now, it was going to be a little bit sooner than it has been, because I had a 10-ounce skimmer on that middle line, and this little area here, and you should always look at your area. If you see like 5 or 6 pegs down people catching, you can't really do anything about that. But in the next 1 or 2 pegs to you, if people are catching, you kind of know, which is what I was talking about earlier, like, oh, I need to move, I need to get back out there. But I've had one, that skimmer, and nobody else has had one in that little period there. So there's clearly not a lot of bites in this little bit at the moment. If I sort of look 4 or 5 pegs down, I can see an odd landing net going out. So the fish are still having a little feed, but clearly in this little bit where we are, it's not particularly good at the moment. Now, I'm going to give this 3 chucks out there, 3 5-minute chucks. I can see odd people getting skimmer bites down there. I can see odd nets going out. So at the moment I'm not sure there's any here, so it'll be interesting to see if this, like, I've literally put 2 feederfuls in here like 25 minutes ago, nothing. So each one had a little blobber worm, so there's not a lot here. So this is like a bit of a cleaner area, not a lot of bait. You know, might just be a little bit longer than maybe others around me, and a little bit longer than what I've been fishing. So this is the sort of thing I wanted to try today. See if this goes. If I can catch 2 or 3 in this little period, like a new line that's a bit quieter, that's sort of not been fished, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Because as I've told you before, just if I build up any bait in the peg, just don't catch anything. You know, it is ever so strange. It's a real mystery at the moment, this place, to me, which is so weird when for so long I felt like in control of the fishing. But I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the challenge of things changing, things turning. So if, you know, when you go on the places you go, you think you know how to do it, but they'll always change, they'll always adapt. People will start putting in different things and different baits, and you know, things change. So I put like a nice-ish blob of worm in that medium window last chuck, and I'm going to put a nice-ish blob of worm next chuck as well. So I've sort of had like 2 chucks with, you know, like probably that sort of size piece of worm there. You know, that just a nice little blob of worm in the middle of it, just a tiny bit of ground bait to nip it together, and then like I'll use the ground bait itself to hold it in the feeder. So a nice-ish blob. See if they come to it. This is first chuck it. I was hoping there might be an early one here. One just waiting for me. Or it might just take 2 or 3 chucks. Or it might not go at all. Don't know. I'm going to leave that short line a little bit quieter, and I'm going to hit that with some bait about 2:30. And if it's a day when I just feel like I'm not catching them, I'm going to give that short line a really good go today late on, because wind's in the face, it's nice and warm. It's a time of year when fish can sew up short, you know, come short towards the end. And I'll be honest, like, unless I get a bream, I'm going to be too far behind. You know, I'm going to need 2 bream. 2 bream and I'd be winning this section. £7 is winning at the moment, from what I've been told. So, you know, 1 bream probably wouldn't be enough. I need 2, because I've got my sort of 2 and a bit pound of other fish. Just see an odd net go out down there. It's ever so weird. There's like definitely not as many here where we are now. Bring this in. That's been 5 minutes. I've got a 45 gram window on because it's like a 8-9 mile an hour wind in my face, getting up a little bit all the time, I noticed. So I've got no bait on. Didn't see a bite. Maybe one of those little roaches stripped me there. Let's try again. Just like going for like 2 or 3 pieces of red worm on this chuck. Didn't see a bite there, but maybe one of those little roaches stripped my bait there. when you're fishing 45 gram here, it's the bottom is silty, so I like to let it go in and then just ease the feeder back out of the silt a little bit, just so it's not locked in. Don't want it like, or run the risk of cracking me off or anything like that. It's not moving my hook bait, it's almost just like going in, and I can guarantee it's going like this sort of far into the silt. So then I'm literally just slowly pulling the braid, and you feel the feeder loosening, and it probably just brings it back onto the surface, and the bait is there. And so I can't even begin to tell you how soft and silty this place is. If you've never fished here, I think if they drained it of water, it'd just be God knows how deep in just sludge, like complete sludge, because it's so shallow, and you know, it's this sort of like overflow field, if you like, for the canal. It's not gravel or anything like that. About 5 foot deeper and nice gravel bottom would be nice here. Right, let's see if we can catch one on here. If not, we'll back onto the middle, see if anything's settled back down. Well, it's interesting because second chuck long, we've hooked a skimmer, not a big one. Was a betting man, I'd say it's our biggest fish, but it's not a bream. But interestingly, like I told you, there's nothing being caught in this little area, and that's just gone round with one. So I can't say that's a failure at all. And hopefully next chuck we'll have a bigger brother like a bream. But just taking it steady, because I'm not, when you're fishing with a heavy feeder, I'm getting a few like nods and things like that. I hate these little skimmers with heavy feeders, I've got to be honest. Not a big fish, but we're going to take it nonetheless. There we go. Right, catching an odd fish. Catching an odd fish. A bit like my last one that I had. But just haven't had that bream, which is the key for sure. There's 3 anglers to my left, all had a bream, and I know that's made such a big difference. If I could get myself a bream, then we'd be right up there for sure. Plenty of time left yet for a bream. I think I can see somebody down there playing one, which is the first bream I've seen for ages. That little flurry when Brian had one and the 2 anglers next to him had one. You know, that was definitely a time when there was a little pod of bream there, and I actually had a bit of an unlucky incident. I don't think I've told you guys. My rod went round with what looked like a bream bite. I picked it up, there was nothing there, and one jumped out of the water, so there was one in my peg, but it never picked up my hook bait. I think it just got tangled around my feeder, which was really unlucky, because had that not have happened, that would of course would have been a bream. So I've been a bit unfortunate, to be honest. When Brian had his bream, he had a slight tangle and he chucked his short rod out, and he had a big eel on it while he was sorting his rod out. So in that little period he probably had like 5 pound. So I need a little bit of that to come my way. I've just got like, I caught that on 3 bits of red worm, same as the initial chuck. Oh, Brian's got one, look at that. That's what seems, that is what can happen. Same size skimmers, so maybe there is an odd one back in the area. Maybe we're going to get a few bites. Chop a few worms up. This is like my 3rd chop now. Got half a pot at a time. trying to keep them nice and fresh today. It'd be nice if this went round again. Feel like, you know, it's a little something that worked, but one fish, can't read too much into it, but we are getting an odd bite. Let's see if we can get a few more. Well, this is a little turn up for the books because this is my 4th skimmer in 4 chucks, and they're not tiny. This is probably the smallest one. They're like 10 ounce each. This might be the same sort of size, and I'm gonna say I'm a bream away, because Brian's catching a lot of them, but they're not as big as my ones. They're like those like 6 ounce ones. But obviously he's got a bream. Now I think it's Joey Farrell, I can't see down there, but I think it's Joey Farrell's got 2 bream. He's had a second bream. And these skimmers are keeping me interested because I'm getting bites and I feel like there's fish in the peg. Now, it's the first time in a long time that I felt like that. I feel like my peg's getting stronger, or I'm having a run anyway. I wouldn't say it's, you know, 4 in 4 chucks is the most I've had for a long time here. So it's like I put a 3 square cage on, and I can get a bite. I'm not putting loads of worm in it. I've just got like I'm just putting a little tiny blob of worm in the ground bait, and then whizzing it around, nipping it into this 3 square cage. 2 or 3 pieces of a red worm on the hook. I'm not particularly happy with that cast. Wind was blowing a little bit right to left there, and I aimed slightly to the right thinking the wind would bring it in, and it's kept it straight, which is a bit frustrating because I was fishing quite tight there for a minute. I'll chop a few more worms just in case I want to feed some on this short line, because like I've said to you, I need a bream. I don't think, unless it stayed like this one a chuck, you know, the 4 I've just had, if it was like that till the end, I'd be thinking, yeah, you know what, I've got a chance of, but it won't stay like that till the end. It's not how Southfield works. You don't catch 15 skimmers in 15 chucks, you know, it's just not going to happen like that. So I know that when this goes, I am going to need a bream. Now there's a chance I might catch a bream on this, because obviously there's fish in the peg, the peg's working for me, and that's very positive. So I'm going to put a feeder full in. I've put some, like, a few casters, a few dead maggots. I'm actually just going to chop few chunky pieces of worm, and I'm going to feed that like literally like 10 worms, just 8 or 9 chucks there, and I'm going to put that in at 18 metres. Very breamy looking mix. Look, you can probably see there, I'll get a handful of it. Look, casters, pinkies, chunky pieces of worm. We've got our 45 minutes left, so I'm going to put 2 big feeders in at what, 18 metres. Just for a bream. You know, and if I've got a fish for a bream at the end, I've got, you know, it gives me something that I can feel like I can do. So just going to move that a little bit. I wasn't delighted with that cast, got to be honest. So I'm not going to give it quite as long because I haven't got the confidence in it, but just give it a little twitch there. Give it like another minute. Wind that in. 2 feederfuls in at 18 metres with this green bait, and then I can make a decision. Then obviously if it go, you know, I'll give this 2 or 3 more casts anyway because I've just had a little run of fish. Trouble is, it doesn't happen quickly. You know, your bites are like 2 to 4 minutes, so you never bag on them. The conditions are nice, and you know, if the fish could settle there, you never know. And while you're getting a bite from a skimmer, there is a chance of it going around with a bream. So I do feel like I'm in the race, but I'm missing the key fish. That's what I would say at the moment. I'm just missing that one bream. Catch a bream, and you know, if I caught I probably got £4. So if I caught a £4 bream, I'd have £8, which would be right up there, right up there. Probably got £8 winning at the moment. So just need that kick on fish, which can definitely happen. So I'm going to bring this in, get that short line fed, and see if we can keep catching a few. Right, we're in full bream fishing mode. Caught some skimmers. We've done all right with skimmers. We were 1 bream, we needed 1 bream. Now we need 2 bream. Brian's just had a bream next to me on a line, looks like about 30 metres, where he set it up for a bream. And he's had one to go with his early one. So he's got, I mean, it's a big fish, the big fish, so he's probably got like 11 or 12 pound, I'd say. We're way off that. There's still an odd skimmer to catch. I could probably catch an odd skimmer. We've got an hour left, so we need 2 bream. Because if we've got 2 bream, like those decent bream that Brian and the next couple of guys got, Joey Farrell's got 2. So it goes 2, 1, 2 there in 3 pegs. Don't know if anyone else has got a bream actually in this zone, in this 20 pegs. So if I can catch 2 bream, we'll have a great chance if Brian catches no more, of course. Because we've got enough skimmers to add to those bream. So what I've done is I've been a little bit more aggressive. That cast-free dead maggoty mix that you've just seen, I've just put like, yep, what was that? That looked like a bite there on a short line, but it hasn't, yeah, see, well, I was going to say, I've put like 2 or 3 of those cast-free maggoty type mixes in at 42 metres. I'm going to have 10 more minutes here, and I'm fishing much bigger hook baits. So like this one was on 4 redworms, for example, big hook bait that is. Just trying to be more stand out, really, give myself a chance of that bream. So it's quite exciting because I do feel like there's a chance I could catch 1 or 2. There's obviously an odd one in the area. It's just whether they decide to come and eat my stuff or not. Now, put a pinky on with this one, I think. Dead pinky. So going 3 redworms and a pinky. But yeah, but everything's just a bit more aggressive. I've not got a massive feeder on because I've got to be honest, I don't really want a massive feeder on because I've put quite a bit of bait in there. So I just want this like little intense blob of bait that maybe a fish comes in, has a little nosy around, and my hook bait is there. But had two there. Brian's got a fish on there now, you see, so I think there's a chance. The wind's up, the conditions are good, there is a chance. Looks like he might have another one. So there is a chance of some bream coming, but we need them fast now. We're an hour away. You know, I can tell he's fishing for a slightly bigger fish. That's a better fish. It's like a pounder. I think like a bigger hook and bigger hook baits and those sorts of things. Just need to hope that they come and have a little go on my line as well. And there is, like I say, there is a chance. So you know, you've got to be prepared to adapt and adjust and take it from there. It's been a funny day though. It's been a funny day. I'm very torn about this place at the moment on how I should need to go about it. For me, if you don't catch those bream, you just aren't going to qualify. You need the bream to qualify. And there's so few fish, you don't know when or where they're going to come, so I suppose you just got to give yourself the best chance of catching them at a certain time. But we've put some bait in on that 42, some other particles as well, and we'll have a look back on there in a minute. Maybe put one on this and come off it. We've got an hour. You know, it's sometimes with these bream you can get 3 and 3 chucks, so we're not over yet for sure. Little indication there. Skimmers are there. Nice fishing. Nice fishing. Is more bites than I've had here for a long time, to be honest. Just like I say, just need it to be a bream when it goes round, rather than these sort of skimmers and little skimmers. But yeah, some good fishing. I can't complain at the day's fishing I've had. Just need a bream or two. We'll keep you informed. Well, a better one. Which is nice. It's not a bream, but a better one. But one of those better skimmers. I've just had a phone call actually from those up to my right past Brian, and they reckon there is quite a few anglers now with double figures. And they've all got 2 or 3 bream. So to my left, for the rest of the zone, they think there isn't a bream. So it seems like I'm just on the cusp of the bream. So we could do with a couple moving down this way. So I don't think I'm doing much wrong, I've got to be honest, for a bream. I'm catching enough fish to suggest if there was a bream here, I'd catch one. And I'm getting like bites on this shorter line, which with the wind being how it is, I'm kind of like, I'm happy to gamble and stay there. Did put some bait in at 42, and you know, of course maybe you might go out there and catch a bream, but I'm getting like a fish every chuck in here if I chuck it in and wait. You know, that one's a slightly better skimmer. You just feel like there is a chance that looked like it could be tangled up, that did. I haven't had a tangle all day, but you can't risk it if you're going to sit and wait. And I don't mind a little bit of bait going in. Yeah, look, see, I thought I saw it. The wind was a bit awkward there, and it's just tangled round, so it was a good decision to bring it in. You're not going to catch one when it's all tangled up. It's amazing that you're catching those skimmers now on like nice big hook baits. Okay, that's great. Definitely some fish in the peg. So it's nice to get some bites from it, and I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to drop on. I don't really want to drop on that 42 metre line, because I feel like this 18 metre line, traditionally, you know, if there's some bream and some bigger bream, this is where they can turn up. And they can turn up in numbers, and the fact that I'm fishing it because I'm getting some bites means I'm kind of a bit more in control of the peg. I think if we have a couple of chucks without one, we can put one in and then go back onto 42, but for the time being, I'm just going to stay here because there's certainly a few bites. Crazy, when I spoke to them up there, they reckon there's about 7 or 8 from this. There's 9 people to my right, and apparently about 7 or 8 of them have got at least 1, 2 or 3 bream. So you feel like there's a few up this end, so there's a good chance, but for whatever reason but like I say, to my left there hasn't been any, so makes you think that maybe we just, like I say, we're just on the cusp of them perhaps. We'll see if it'll go round with a big one. Well, we're into the last 4 minutes and the bream has not happened. Despite my absolute and utter best efforts, I've given the last 40 minutes to this 18 metre line. Felt like with the conditions how they were, there was a great chance of catching a bream there. I actually haven't caught anything there in the last 40 minutes, which is really surprising. There was an odd fish at 40 metres, to be fair, like odd skimmers and that. And the fish that I have seen caught have been like on that 30 metre line later on. So I would say I probably fished in the wrong place. I think anyway. I've had a lot of success here fishing like 40 and 20 metres, so you can't always assume that to be the case, but it looked to me like 50 and 30 was a better choice today. If I came back again, I'd certainly do it like that. The short line just hasn't really thrown up any fish. That 30 metre line has been worth an odd bream for people. You know, I'm hearing rumours of quite a few people catching an odd bream down to my right, which is good. You know, it's fished well. I've had a nice day's fishing. I've got a dozen or so skimmers. I just haven't had the bream, and I'm not too sure. If I'm being totally honest, I'm not too sure why. I need to look at why I'm not, or why I haven't caught any bream. I mean, I can see 2 or 3 people packing up to my left, so it does strike me that it's getting worse this way. And I know that this side to my right has been a lot better, but still, as a match angler, I love to come off the bank thinking, you know, how can I do it different? Maybe next time I could explore a stronger fish meal ground bait, for example. Maybe that's the way to go. I've used that the last 2 matches. I've used like 50-50 green, match method mix. I've tried those 2 ground baits. And I've had a lot of success with match method mix in the past, so maybe I'll go back to that on the next match, something a little bit more potent. One thing is for sure, this mix has been great for skimmers. I've probably caught more than most people, if not everyone here, in terms of skimmers. And I've had a nice day's fishing. I just haven't kicked on and had that bream, so it's been an interesting one. We'll let you know the weights as I finish up and what weight qualified. It certainly won't be me today, so you can't win them all, unfortunately, on these live matches. And this one certainly hasn't been a disaster, because we've had plenty of fish and lots of things to talk about. but definitely not been the perfect match by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm looking forward to putting it right in the future. So let's see what the scales give me and take it from there. Well, I enjoyed that. 9-12, nice net of skimmers there, really interesting fishing. Glenn Lawrence has qualified in my zone today, further down to my right past Brian. He was on peg 67, I've been on 61. Glenn's had 19.2, including a 5-pound bream netted on the whistle, which has obviously got him over the line. Brian's had 16 pounds, so as I thought I was 2 bream short, you know, two decent bream for that weight. I think I'm going to snatch a default there because Brian will frame with that. Really interesting because those bream played a big part. Glenn's had 3 bream in his net, Brian's had 2 bream in his net. So I'm just missing those bream. That's what's been most interesting today. As I thought, I probably had the most skimmers on the bank, which is good. Just how I'm going to push on to catch those odd bonus bream. I will say, like I said before, they haven't been caught to my left. You know, they have been caught up there to the right. There's a 15-pound just past Glenn, but not everybody's had them. There's sort of 4 of them who have had a bream, or 2, and then the rest haven't. So maybe they're a little bit patchy. Maybe there's a way to catch them. It's interesting when you're fishing for 1 or 2 amongst those other fish. It's quite interesting, but it's a great competition. Well done to Glenn from qualifying in my zone today, and I shall be back again for another qualifier in a couple of weeks, maybe chasing those elusive bream. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, had a little look at how I like to go about my fishing, how I like to think about it, and how I like to try and make sure that we can, if we don't win, how we can win in the future. See you later.